Hello, Fashions, and welcome back to a YouTube video. The topic of this video was going to be a part of the major video I've been working on, my general welcome to the news on YouTube. However, this project got done way quicker than I thought it was going to, so I figured I'd share what I've gotten done so far. But don't worry, I've replaced that chunk of the video with something else, because I know you're a slut for Fest content. I mean, that can't be just me, right? Anyway, recently, as a minor idea, very low priority on my project list, I've been thinking through making a line graphing tech in Fest. This is a novelty as I see it, but might actually lead to some fun advances in the realm of very specialized games. I'll preface by saying that the whole tech isn't done. However, I've gotten to a point that I can totally share what I have gotten done. First, I needed to make a proper calculator. You know, like the name of the, it's a Fest it's the Fest. I expected this to be harder than it was, or harder than it turned out to be. But in the end, the tech only took me about a couple hours to fully get the calculator part done. Obviously, any advances past this point, more calculator functions, graphing the grid system to it is going to take much longer and be far more complicated than this is, but this is happily very simple to use. To be able to explain how they work, because after addition and subtraction, they're not quite so straightforward, even though, they're simple. But I was starting with addition and subtraction. Fuck. And that's not what you do. You don't drop your DS. You don't do that. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the swearing. I know this is the Christian community. Addition. We're starting now. It's happening. The first thing that happens, your first page is empty. Page 1. Completely empty. You press your little equal thing on the bottom of the screen, and it starts adding. Damn. Wow. Today's not a good day for me swearing. My morality is decreasing rapidly. First thing that happens, you press your switch. You press on it. It turns on switch number 3, add. And as long as the first digit. Okay. How do I explain this better? How do I do it? Here's how. Page 1. Literally nothing. Page 2. When the add switch is on and the first digit is greater than 1, then the second digit will increase and the first digit will decrease. That will loop until the first digit equals 0, at which point the third page is activated and the switch add is turned off, leaving the second variable as your answer. Subtraction is the same thing as addition, literally to the point that I won't even describe it more than just the both variables are reduced instead of one being increased. However, it does warrant some discussion as it has the first limitation of the tech. If you've worked with variables in Fest, you'll know that you can only increase by a set amount and you can only decrease to 0. The major downside then being that there are no negative numbers. While this isn't a problem for the calculator, it becomes a major problem in the realm of graphing, mainly because of slope and because of y-intercepts. Well, I'm sure graphing can be done without these and is probably very much accessible through a different method. But to my current understanding of very basic math, it seems far more difficult than maybe it is, but it's going to be harder to make, for me at least. But basic stuff along those lines is slope form, slope-intercept form, things that are genuinely not possible without negative numbers. Because if the x or y is a negative or positive number determines the direction of the line, meaning with only positive integers, it can only point up to the top right from the bottom left. And a lot of variety, a lot of usability of the graph is impossible. And I don't want to, while doing that could be fun and doing that could be effective to get something down, I don't really want to approach it from a way that I might have to change entirely and redo to give it more usability. I'm sure I'm overthinking or underthinking or approaching it from a wrong perspective, and there's ways to get around that. However, where I'm at currently and what I've been able to find is it's a major limitation. I think it could be changed. It could be fixed by having another variable represent a negative number. If it's still being subtracted when the first variable reaches 0, it can be added to another variable and that would represent the negative number. But that's a version 2 issue. And I didn't worry about it. Multiplication was the first actually difficult part of this tech. it's added a new dimension. It added 2 more variables to the equation, and by some poor planning, the total of the equation is now the 4th variable instead of the 2nd variable. That was an oversight on my part. I should have put more thought into that, but it's still version 1, so I'm fine with it. Once again, first page is empty. That's going to be with everything. So the second page, the multiplication switches on, and the second digit is equal to or more than 1. The 4th variable is increased. That will be the total for this equation. The 3rd variable is increased. That will be the saved digit, so it remembers what it's doing. And the 2nd digit is decreased. That loops until the 2nd digit equals 0. This triggers the 3rd page. It turns on the switch x2, and then an event continues to page 4. In page 4, it adds the 3rd digit back to the 2nd digit. Here's a chance I could have had to increase the efficiency of the system, but I'll explain that later. When saved digit equals 0 and x2 is on, it decreases the first variable by 1 and then turns the switch off, at which point it goes back to page 2 and loops back until the first digit equals 0, at which point it turns all the switches off. 4th variable is your answer. In terms of efficiency, multiplication is the slowest one. During testing, I multiplied 200 by 200, and I genuinely forgot it was going, and I went to get ice cream with my brothers. Walking, I came back, and it still had a few loops left to do, taking an hour and a half to get the right answer, and I think it may have been the wrong answer, so there may be even more limitations to this one bit. I think it was only off by 1 if it was wrong, but I've only seen that problem once, so I'm not entirely sure if it's a real thing. We all kind of made the distinction when we were young of multiplication being to division as addition is to subtraction, more of as a stupid fetus brain parallel than an educated idea. But apparently that's entirely correct. The only thing that changes is what is displayed as the answer. For division, it subtracts the 2nd variable from the 1st variable and does the saved digit and ticks up the 4th variable by 1 every time it subtracts. That measures how many times it goes into the other variable. When the 2nd variable reaches 0, the 4th variable is your answer. However, there is a very large limitation of this one, being it rounds up always. So if you have 26 divided by 5, it will equal 6 and not 5.2, as it should be. Also, somewhere along the line, I screwed up and it adds at the wrong time or whatever to the 4th variable. So at the end of the equation, when it's turning all the switches off, it also has to 4th variable by 1, or it will be an inaccurate answer, which is something I can fix, but it's an oversight. I have quite a few plans for the future of this system. I want to try adding more and more functionality to it. Probably my next target will be square roots. Squares would be fairly simple to do, and as long as taking the square root is possible with only integers, which I'd imagine it is, it should be far simpler than the graphing tech. The graphing tech, in the end, is understandably a far more difficult calculation. I've watched a lot of videos, but I'm probably missing the proper understanding of mathematical jargon to find exactly what I'm looking for. If graphing lands is possible, then that opens the door for so much more calculation, plotting arcs, graphing, circles, percentages, and more. It'll add so much functionality to a game that obviously lacks basic mathematical functions. If this goes that far, we may even be able to make a functioning Fest paint, maybe even small animations. Obviously something that is hindered by the screen is very small, but it could be really fun to do. It could be really fascinating in concept. A lot of space. I can imagine this will be, especially on line graphing, when you have to have a grid, especially if it's more than like one screen, it's going to take up so much space. As I said before, this is a novelty. I don't expect anyone will get any use out of those things, but for the purpose of having it, and for the achievement of it, I'm actually really excited to progress this system. If anyone has any idea on how to create the efficiency of this system, or a way to move into making anything else with this system for the next version of it, feel free to comment below. I'd 100% appreciate the help. Also, remember, keep a clear head, stay alert, and don't shoot until you see the white of their eyes. Subscribe!